What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at DataDash, and today is June 12th of 2019. Well, folks, I hope you all are having a great day wherever you are, and in today's video, we're going to be putting our macro perspective hats on and be diving deep into a ton of data, price action, and news for both cryptocurrency and traditional markets. So we've got lots to discuss, but I want to let you all know real quick that we've got a new sponsor on the channel that I'm going to be utilizing from time to time in the daily updates known as CoinMarketCal. And to put it simple, guys, as you can probably tell right off the bat, it's basically surrounding major calendar dates for cryptocurrency conferences, projects, things of that sort that you can keep an eye on and get a good scan of what's going on in the broad space of crypto. Helps kind of keep everything in one place. And you can also set alerts, all kinds of really interesting things as well. So we'll be using that as we go throughout our daily updates from time to time. Alrighty, so as we take a look at the broad perspective on the market over the last 7 days, most cryptocurrencies are still up as Bitcoin has held quite resilient around the $8,000 range. And along with that, over the last 24 hours, a decent amount of altcoins have continued to carry the market higher. Zcoin has really been outpacing most things at the moment. I've been interested to see this privacy coin, which for a while was quite quiet, now starting to come back quite strong with a decent amount of volume through major exchanges like Binance. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on a little bit of the privacy coins here, as I'm a big privacy coin advocate personally, in the sense of fungibility. And, obviously if this is going to be peer-to-peer electronic cash, I think we need those privacy features. But we might see that later down the road as well with Litecoin, with the possible implementation of Mimblewimble, and also you've got other competitors like Monero. Now, as we take a look here at market cap, the one interesting thing that I've talked about in the past few days is the fact that we might be seeing a head and shoulders. And this is not only in the case of Bitcoin, but also in altcoins as well. And at the moment, we're actually at the shoulder range. If this were to be a head and shoulders forming, this being the shoulder over here, this being the head, and this being the other shoulder over here, we're actually at the same valuation range that we were over here at around 259 to 260 billion here in the early part or mid part of May. And as we can see here, we're back at $260 billion. So if we were to have a head and shoulders pattern, we'd want to see it soon in Bitcoin because there's not much valuation range that we can move higher that's going to say that, oh, this is a head and shoulders. It's going to be, okay, we're probably going to come back and retest the highs here, which would be good for bulls in that case. Again, we've been seeing Bitcoin hold quite nice over the last few days. And also, not to mention as well, market dominance for Bitcoin has again slowly been creeping down. Other coin dominance, trying to slowly press up towards the previous range it was at before. So we might be seeing some kind of breakout soon. Now, let's go ahead, take a look here at the chart. What we're seeing right now, at least from what I can assess, is that, again, we're trying to get a solid breakout above 8,200. And if we break out above 8,400 here, which is, again, the previous shoulder for Bitcoin, I would say that you're going to get your rally to, 10,000, I would say. That would be very, very likely. If we were to extend the line here for the wedge, and again, if we curve up here, have a breakout, we could easily get up to 10,000 in that case. It wouldn't be too far out. The only thing that I want to see that I haven't seen yet is a continuation of volume. Now, again, you'll get different mixed signals here in regards to interpreting markets because TA is very subjective. But I will say, as much as I want to see volume come through, and we haven't seen that yet, what's actually quite positive is that we're not seeing crazy sell side action, and not to mention as well, there's in this period where we're kind of pushing sideways, it's actually sometimes good to have low volume. So if we take a look at, for example, bull flags, the whole objective of a bull flag is to see a breakout. So like something like this, for example, we've got multiple days where price is going up, or a really solid 1 or 2 days where price has leaped up, and then you want to see consolidation to the side in regards with lower volume in this case. So you want to see a little bit of that price gain kind of retrace, not too significant, but at the same time with little to no volume, showing that, hey, buyers who bought at those levels are not selling. There's too much buy pressure, and there's room for price to continue. And I guess you could say that that's the case here. The problem I see here is that price has been moving slightly up in this case, and there's not much serious buy side volume. I fear that if you're going to see another one of these days come through, we're going to close below these levels at 7,400, and then you're really going to get into no man's land territory where there isn't much serious support ranges, right? Outside of the big evens like 6,000, right? Somewhere in this range is where I'd first start to feel comfortable adding in my Bitcoin. But again, I'm going to be watching. So if we get the breakout above 8,400, I'm going long personally. Again, it's another $400 gap, but I think that gives me a nice little reward profile from 8,400 to around the $10,000 range. And if we break below these levels at 7,400, again, another $400 gap. Once we break through there, I think we're going down to 6,000. So again, I've got cash on the side. I'm ready for both different positions. Again, this is very much sideways price action. And for me, I still have my belief that this is going to go down. The risk to reward profile just isn't there for me personally in the short term. Long-term positions, I haven't touched anything, guys. So again, I should be more good about specifying that. I don't want you guys to think I'm bearish on Bitcoin. Bitcoin's obviously gone through its consolidation phase. What we're doing now that I believe is that we're going through the retrace to make support on 6K again, to really ramp up, move higher going into the last part of 2019 and going into 2020, which I think will bring us back up to the highs and then lead us towards a rally into 2021 where we could really start to see Bitcoin pressing up towards much, much higher levels. So I'm excited. I think we've got a lot coming for cryptocurrency markets. I don't want to sound bearish. If we take a look here at a few of the other market leaders, we can take a look at Ethereum. Again, the reason why I have this kind of confidence, guys, is I'm not seeing the kind of resilience in some of the major market leaders. I'm seeing it through other coins across the board, but I'm not seeing it through ETH. I'm not seeing it through XRP. Litecoin, on the other hand, has just obliterated the competition. It's obliterated all expectations and is continuing to go parabolic here. Again, though, as much as I hate to bet against something that's been doing so well, you usually don't want to buy something that's going parabolic. Last time Litecoin did that, retraced down, 80 to 90% of those gains in that period of time. So again, I'm still waiting for something like Litecoin to kind of retrace down. I know people are excited about the Litecoin halving, things of that sort, but I don't buy after something's literally starting to curve up parabolic. I wait for this to retrace. But I'll definitely be keeping an eye on Litecoin with Mimblewimble and a lot of other features of that sort. I think it's going to be an interesting play going into 2019 and 2020, or the later part of 2019. Now, in the sense, we'll take a little bit of a look here at altcoins. Zcoin, as I mentioned, is leading the market at the moment. We'll take a look here, jump over to Binance. Zcoin, again, is up 25% compared to Bitcoin, just picking up here, serious steam. I don't know exactly why. I know there's some, I think, supposed updates that are coming to the protocol. I've known some people who work around the Zcoin project for a while, and I'm interested to see this continue to pick up. I like seeing privacy coins do well, but I want to see this have a nice retrace, pick down to a support level, perhaps down here around 120,000 satoshis, as it was holding support here for a while, and it was support over here as well. But again, I want to see this retrace down a little bit, and then again show that kind of bull flag pattern where there's not too much volume on the sell side. So that's kind of one of the leading altcoins right now. Again, not diving too heavily into altcoins at the moment. I've done a little bit of trading, but nothing severe right now. I've just been really trying to focus on building a cash position right now and buying it and entering as much Bitcoin as I can possibly right now. So let's go ahead and talk about some pieces of news. Coinbase has recently launched a new card that is going to be available in 6 European countries where you'll actually be able to spend your crypto. Pretty exciting stuff. Now, Coinbase has more of a predominant audience in the US, as obviously it's it's a US company, things of that sort. But as much as this is like kind of a small step in the direction of actually being able to make crypto used in merchants, for merchants and everything, I think this is exciting. They've actually got an official partnership with Visa. So this Visa debit card will allow you to basically settle your crypto transactions. The way that it would work, I'm assuming, is that basically Coinbase would basically liquidate your crypto position. Let's say I wanted to spend $100 worth of Bitcoin. They would sell it on the open exchange, and then thereon go about basically Visa in this case would process the transaction on there, and they'd do a matching transaction. So again, it's a very simple model, but I think it's really cool to see this. They're going to basically have it available in Spain, Germany, France, Italy, Ireland, and the Netherlands. So I think in areas like the Netherlands, this will be really popular. Again, very big hotspot for cryptocurrencies. And one thing to hear that they said, the UK Coinbase CEO had stated, you can buy your groceries with Bitcoin, so you're buying those larger payments with Bitcoin, and then coffee on Litecoin, seeing as the fees are lower. So it's pretty cool. I'm curious what the fee structure is. I'm assuming you're going to be paying like standard transaction fees that you would on Coinbase, and Coinbase will probably take a smaller chunk of it, and then you have basically Visa get their cut of it as well. But who knows what's happening behind the scenes? That stuff isn't really transparent to us right now. They did actually mention as well, even though this isn't really the topic of the article, that at the moment they're not really looking too much into decentralized exchanges. And I have to say, it's to me it's quite obvious. Like, I mean, obviously they're trying to probably keep people on a centralized exchange where they've got custody, where they're going to get to charge 2 or 3% fees. And hey, as a business model, that's pretty smart if they can keep it going. But quite frankly, I think they need to explore decentralized exchanges. They need to explore having a more decentralized model, because I think people over the next few years and stuff, a lot of people aren't comfortable getting into crypto because they're tired of the exchange hacks and they want to have custody of their own funds. We just have to make it extremely simple and have a backup strategy and stuff where your private key is not only safe, but also that it's easy to manage. And there's a lot of cool solutions coming out. So I think that that's one wrong step that Coinbase is making. But happy to see more cards like this. I know I've recently partnered with Spend and everything. Spend has been doing some really awesome stuff, and we've gotten a lot of registrations on Spend's card and everything. It's a really cool program in my opinion. I love seeing people actually use their crypto. Speaking of actually using crypto and actually trying to buy Bitcoin with your fiat in alternative ways, Bitcoin ATMs just reached their largest amount, over 300 new Bitcoin ATMs installed. And this has been a growing trend over the last few months. The thing that excites me, gotta have my proud American moment here. We've actually got the mass majority of these new ATMs being installed in the US. So this is the worldwide numbers here. It's combining all the countries. Really outside here of November in 2015, when Bitcoin was kind of in a rut, we've actually had really steady growth here in ATMs over the last few years. It's got a little bit shaky here, but throughout 2019, again, we're starting to get a pickup here. Most of it, as I mentioned, is in the United States. We can see that most of those are getting installed here. And Australia has been getting a lot of ATMs decommissioned. I think a lot of it has to do with regulations and laws and how these different countries are basically implementing the ATMs. But I'm real surprised the U.S. was really, taking the bulk of this. I thought it would be the opposite. I thought it would be, and for example, they have Austria here, or Canada. I thought it would be in other areas, but really shocked to see Bitcoin has been taking the charge here in the sense of ATMs in the U.S. Very proud American moment. But there's been a lot of companies that have actually been getting into the ATM space for Bitcoin. I mean, it's very lucrative and very profitable depending on their fee structure. But I think that it's convenient. I think people like that, but also I think the privacy aspect as well, I think is a big thing. Nash as well has been preparing to launch its beta version of the decentralized exchange, as we were just on the topic of decentralized exchanges. I'm very interested to see how this works, because I know a lot of people were excited about Nash, and I'm keeping an eye. I love the UI. I love how much more professional these DEXs are starting to look, and we'll have to see how things go. But this has been in the works for a while. They raised over like $30 million. Oh, sorry, it was $37.25 million in capital. But again, I'm interested to see how Nash does. This is going to be basically a Chrome extension you can have it here to do trading or see your portfolio balance. So I like this kind of approach, just making it seamless in a sense, and much more, I think, much more mature appearing than to a lot of people who are just getting into crypto. Now, on the topic of South America, this is an interesting predicament. So in Brazil, they have their new president that has stepped in. I always forget his name. I know his last name, Bolsonaro. So basically in Brazil, this is the new president that stepped in, and he basically, as of recent, canceled a program that would have helped a lot of indigenous people in Brazil to learn how to use Bitcoin. And I think it was only like a $13 million program. Now they would have spent, like, I think in the case of the Brazilian real, they would have spent like 40 million, sorry, 40 million reals. This was his quote. "We are cutting expenses. We were about to use 40 million reals to teach natives to use Bitcoin," he said. In fact, Bolsonaro said he doesn't even know what Bitcoin is. So this was a program that was in the previous administration before Bolsonaro, and he said, "I don't know." He said, "Is it a coin?" So this is kind of like, this is why I would love to have, like, more than anything, I desire to like have like a meeting with like world leaders and just explain in very simple terms what Bitcoin is, because I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is just kind of keeping it simple. But I would talk about showing what it's done, how to use it, and I think at that point people would get the material value of it, and then having some simple analogies to explain it. But this is the kind of misunderstanding that Brazil and a variety of other governments across the world, and it's really sad to see in South America that they have this misunderstanding, because it's used by so many people, because it's needed there. In fact, they say in the article here that over 100,000 Bitcoin was exchanged alone in April for Brazil. I mean, that's just incredible stuff, guys. Now, I know that this number is actually not far off. I have no doubt in believing this number, because, hey, you're splitting up against 30 days. But along with that, you've got exchanges, you've got remittance services. I know companies in Brazil who use Bitcoin as a remittance service, or basically as a remittance gateway to transfer value, because it's much cheaper for businesses, for everyday retail users, things of that sort. And then, not to mention, people in these economies, if they ever need to get credit or they need to get loans, it's just unbearable. It's unpractical. You have predatory lending. You have people going towards peer-to-peer lending instead, which I think is really cool. Kind of cutting out the banking system. You basically need this kind of stuff to come into play. So again, I'm just very upset to see, out of all leaders, that this isn't just a case in Brazil. This is a case in practically every South American country, in Argentina, and all these places where they've continued to fail managing monetary policy. And it's just going to have to be that the people discover it. They're going to have to discover it bit by bit, and they're going to take back their freedom. So I don't really have any opinions, though, on Bolsonaro personally. I don't really know too much about Brazilian politics, but I'll say in that case, it is disappointing to see that there's still such a lack of understanding of crypto. All right, so taking a look at CoinMarketCal, guys, want to go ahead and focus in on what really seems to be present at the moment. Today, for example, they're going to have a core update on ARC, which is actually one of the protocols I've kept up with for a while. It's an AMA with Theta's CEO. Theta as a platform has been really interesting. I've been hearing a lot about Theta as a platform and basically as a content platform and actual real utility for the token. I know they have Theta Fuel that launched on Binance. There's also a Telegram AMA on Walton Chain. And as I was going through here, guys, it seems like as we go towards the later part of the month, or the mid part of the month here, there's the Shelly testnet as well as the Taiwan meetup for Cardano. That looks interesting to me. But towards the mid part to late June, mid part to the later part of June, on the first page and second page here, it's a lot of cryptocurrency meetups across the board, from expos in Europe all the way to all kinds of different areas across the world. So I'd recommend checking into some of the events here. And what's nice as well, for those of you who are just getting your grips on using CoinMarketCal, you can basically look at proof of like the event and everything that usually lead to a link at the website. You can click if it's real or fake, and you can see the percentage vote here for all these different events. So you can see there's a good confidence right here. For example, on the Dent video call launch, you can see here, for example, the X phone on customer market announcement from Pundi X. You can see these things are very clear and transparent. And again, you can come up here, set alerts for specific coins, things of that sort, type in your email. It's very simple. It's very, streamlined. You can also add events as well if you want to add one for your cryptocurrency and let the community either support it or call it out as, not being a legitimate event, things like that. So it's kind of cool. It's very contributed based, and you can, again, filter out which kind of cryptos you want. So I really like it. I've known about CoinMarketCal for a while, but I love how the UI just keeps it simple, short, sweet, and to the point. So going on here, let's go ahead and take a look at some macro data for equity markets. We've dived in pretty deep into cryptocurrency markets. I want to take a look at 3 charts here on LMTR. We haven't looked at LMTR in a while, but there's some really good little paragraph summaries and charts that they display here. The first one we're going to take a look at is why we should worry about the longest U.S. economic expansion ever. Well, you know what happens. So basically, to put it simple, guys, we are stepping up here in June on the longest economic expansion in U.S. history. I want to take a second to just kind of let that sit in. We have never had a bull run in equity markets this long in all of U.S. history. In fact, I would go as far as to say probably in any market's history. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. 120 consecutive months, 10 whole years. Once we go through July and hit 121 months, we will outpace the previous highs. I mean, that's just absolutely breathtaking. And what does this tell us? Well, I think this tells us that central banks, yet again, are getting more and more cunning with monetary policy. And I think they're running out of weapons, but they still have their 2 that they can still use. They can drop rates back down to 0%, which will prolong market expansion for a while, and they can go through the next level of quantitative easing. And this isn't just buying up U.S. treasuries or buying up toxic assets that are weighing down the economy. It's buying up equities, doing exactly what Japan's done. I can see this expansion going on for the next few months to a year or so because they still have those weapons at play, and it seems like they're willing to use them. We're going to learn about that, though, in just a few days when the Fed meeting goes on. We even might do a little bit, I'm curious if you guys would want, I'd love to do a live stream covering the markets during that time period because it's fun to watch the price, and not to mention as well just see what Powell and the rest of the Fed is saying. So if you guys want me to do that, let me know in the comments down below. If you see a comment, like it, drop a like on it. Now, the next thing I want to take a look at is, again, what seems to be a positive indicator can actually be a contrarian indicator, and that is the high in consumer confidence. So on the consumer confidence index, we have set one of the highest levels since back here in the later part of 2000. So 19 years we were setting new highs, even past previously when the housing bubble was building back in 2005, 2006. So yeah, bringing us back to highs we haven't seen since the dot-com bubble and consumer price confidence. I don't know about that. It doesn't make me feel good. And you can see here these gray bars are highlights of recession periods. So you can always see that what tends to be a very positive indicator seems to be a sign that in the next few months we are going to have a reversal in economic trends, right? So even if economic, markets go down and stuff, I will say that equity markets can still climb. Like, equities are in their own world. If the Fed keeps pumping capital into stocks are going to keep rallying. The underlying economy, though, doesn't have to do well. So you can see a dichotomy split between those sometimes. For example, the dot-com bubble, was a great period in this case for people who are invested in equity markets. It was all right for people who were in the standard economy. Now, the third thing I want to take a look at is a chart here from late May, which is basically a combination of the two charts between Nomura, which is a large bank in Japan, and Deutsche Bank as well, which is one of Germany's largest banks, both showing signs of trouble. So we can see here that the Japanese bank Nomura is actually back down. It's past its lows here in 2016 and is getting back down to a range we haven't seen since 2012 and 2013, all while equities have been rallying to new highs. Some of the U.S. banks have been doing stellar, have been leading up towards, again, all-time highs. I think of things like JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs doing well. These ones are holding up relatively towards their highs, whereas Deutsche Bank is back below levels further below than 2008. Let that kind of sink in for a sec. Like, you've done so much to stimulate the economy. Like, banks have had every single leg up. They can bail themselves out. They can buy every politician they want. They're some of the largest lobbyists out there of any industry. I mean, there's pharmaceutical lobbyists. There's lobbyists for construction projects and contracting, and all you can just name dozens of different industries. They can buy out any politician they need. Why? Because they make the money, and their stock looks like this. It's like, man, well, I think that's what happens when you launder money in the hundreds of billions through Estonian banks like Danske Bank and launder dirty money from Russia, right? It's just so sad. It's like you have all the cards. I think that's what happens when you have too much leeway, in a sense. When you have all the cards in your hands, you get comfortable. Well, I can tell you, these banks, even if the German government or the Japanese government step in and try to save them, they're not going to have much room because they're going to start to damage their currencies. The euro is already on a weak link. Japanese yen, probably one of the weakest right now because of the fact that the central bank is seriously picking up assets. It just reached an all-time high. It's not quantitative tightening, it's quantitative easing. So, again, Japan, I think, is something I'd be worried about. I could see this dropping lower to 2 or 150 a share over the next year or so if things keep up the way they are in Japan. And same here at Deutsche Bank. I don't see any reason why I'd want to go long on it unless there's some short-term relief rally from the German government stepping in. Another thing we can take a look through is the daily shot brief. Take a look at some of these models, guys. Fed's custom model here on a flash recession on the horizon. You can see here, pretty damn accurate at predicting when the next recession is, outside of a few variances here in the early to mid 90s. So we're starting to build up here, getting towards recession territory range, usually around 40 to 50% is when we can see that. We saw it over here, saw it over here, and over here as well. So getting quite close to that. I think that's why the Fed got very comfortable saying, hey, we're going to cut rates 2 or 3 times this year. Another chart here as well showing some weakness signs in GDP growth in the sense of the Eurozone. And then also one thing that I want to talk about in regards to equities. Now, as much as I can see NASDAQ 10,000 going up, the PE ratio is probably only going to get up here to a forward P ratio of 20 in this case. So this is basically forward expectations for price to earnings, right? So you're basically taking in the expected earnings in this case. Like, there's been a lot of investments into these companies right now, and they're going to pay off, and this is what we're expecting. Therefore, what are we paying right now for the forward expected earnings, right? Well, the high we saw here was during the tax cuts and the repatriation. There was a lot of things benefiting the U.S. economy and U.S. stocks, and that's what led us to a 20 ratio here for the forward PE. And now we're down here to around 17. I think that you've just got enough room for we're taking a look at the S&P 500 for the Nasdaq hit 10,000. I'll have to take a look at the other levels for the S&P and the Dow Jones, but to make my point here, it's very difficult for this to push to higher levels. In this case, you have to have higher expectations for earnings, and without that, you don't have much room to go without this ratio getting too ridiculous. So another sign that, again, we might be topping out. We've been getting shakier price action in equities over the last year and a half. And two more last charts here with the Mexico-U.S. Tariff deal that was reached the other day. Mexican peso bumped back up against the dollar. And then we also have a charity lunch with Warren Buffett hitting new highs. I'm long Warren Buffett's lunches. But this charity lunch was obviously brought up by Justin Sun. I'm interested to see how either it's gone or how it's going to go. I don't know. I wish they would record it and let people, I guess he's inviting a variety of different people from the space, which is good. But it's going to be an interesting conversation. Perhaps we might get a change in Warren Buffett's mind. I don't think so. Alrighty, guys. So taking a look here at the three major indices in the U.S., NASDAQ, S&P, and Dow Jones, down around 0.3 to 0.2% here. We're still waiting for the market to open up, about 30 minutes away from the open. But as we take a look here, we had a decent sell side day here where we closed down on most of the gains, ended up actually slightly red, nothing too much, pretty much flat for the day from the previous close. Again, we're topping out at a range here that we've seen previously as weighed down price, which is 7,900. And, I think what we're going to do is we're probably going to retrace on some of these gains until we get a real confirmation on how many rate cuts we're getting this year, because I think everyone knows the Fed's going to cut rates this quarter. It's getting very, very likely that the Fed is going to cut rates or is talking about in the next, next setup cutting rates. But the question here for most investors now that we know the Fed is open to cutting rates, is how many are we going to get? Are we going to get 50 basis points split up into two different meetings, meaning 0.25% reduction 2 times? Are we going to get it 3 times? Are we going to keep cutting rates down? What are the signals that the Fed is going to send us, and what words are they going to say that's going to sound like a bunch of mumbo jumbo gibberish, but will be interpreted as how many rate cuts are we getting? Are we opening up to quantitative easing and cutting back on our quantitative tightening, right? Stuff like that. And, that's what we have to look for. So there's not too much TA or any crazy stuff I'm going to do here in the sense of price. I do think we're going to retrace a little bit, possibly down here to 7,600, which is a previous support level here, previous resistance. And we'll have to see after that if the Fed decides to say it's going to cut rates 3 times and it's going to cut it by more than a percentage point over the next few quarters. That's going to be, I think, enough to push this up here, break to all-time highs over the next few days, and start our rally to NASDAQ 10,000. All right. But that's just my opinion. So we'll keep it at that, guys. I'd like to know what you all think about this. Again, please leave a comment down below. If you guys can, drop a like on the video. I always appreciate it. If you guys enjoy my rambling, that I do from time to time. And if you guys would like to see anything on the channel, please feel free to let me know. If you guys want to support me, there's lots of ways you can down below in the description. But until the next video, I hope you all are having a great start to your week. Hope you're having a great Wednesday. And until the next video, I will see you all in the next one. Stay tuned.